You're watching Experience Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
So yesterday was the 4th of July, and if you are in the U.S. and you probably celebrated or had the day off or you know, at least got to hear a plethora of fireworks, which if you're in my neighborhood, I was stunned at how much fireworks we had going off here, because I'd say that they were coming from 5 or 6 different locations, and some of the stuff they were firing off was like professional level show, you know, like you go to a show and see this type of fireworks. So the whole idea that our economy is bad, you can't tell based off of last night. But I have my own tradition. I used to live by Disneyland. I lived within a mile of Disneyland for 5 years. And if you live near Disneyland or go to Disneyland on a regular basis, you know that 9:35 every night they set off fireworks. So for 5 years straight, I saw fireworks every night, just repeatedly. And I got really burned out on fireworks. And I look at my dogs who are freaking out and scared as hell during the thing, and I just don't have an interest in fireworks. So I have a different tradition. My tradition is, and I mentioned this the other day, so it might be repeating for you, is I watch the original 1970s version of 1776, which was based on the Broadway musical. And it's a great movie. It's got way more humor than you would expect. There's some great innuendo, some adult content type of stuff, you know, little jabs here and there. Some incredible one-liners, everything from John Adams saying, "Good Lord, man, the earth was made in just 7 days." And Jefferson look at him and goes, you know, "Someday you must tell me how you did it." You know, or John Dickinson had this great line, which I think is just sums up a lot of the world, which is a man will fight to the death to protect the idea that they could be rich rather than ever accepting the idea that they're poor. Which I thought was kind of interesting. But so yeah, I watch 1776. I've been doing it for over 20 years. That's my holiday tradition. And I used to think it was just me. You know, I see Josh here watches it. Will somebody open up a window? Yeah. Waiting for the chirp, chirp, chirp. But as social media gets bigger and bigger, I find that not only am I not the only one who watches it, that there are some people who are equally obsessed with this film as I am. What turns out, I have found somebody more obsessed with this movie than me. It turns out, I want to make sure I get his name. I think it's Bill Prady. Bill Prady. Yes, Bill Prady, the co-creator of The Big Bang Theory. He posted a picture on Twitter yesterday he owns the actual congressional tally board from the movie and has it mounted on the wall in his home. Now, this isn't like a little, this is what they had up on the wall, and it had these big sliders and had all the 13 different colonies. And you could slide it from yay to abstentia to nay, back and forth. And the way he has it set is the way the film ends on, which is, we're talking about the movie 1776, Ed. And it's got 12 of the colonies all in the yay category. And the only one not in the yay category, because it had to be unanimous for independence to pass. The only one not in the yay category is in the abstentia category, which is New York, who abstains courteously. They did not have any instructions from the Senate from New York on how to what to vote on anything, let alone independence. So it is a really neat thing. He put this picture up, but yeah. So I'm not the only one that's obsessed with this film and treats it like a holiday for, or as my tradition for the 4th of July holiday. Turns out other people do, including the co-creator of The Big Bang Theory. So yeah, Jeff, that is a pretty cool one. I watched it on TCM yesterday as well. Very nice. I have it on Blu-ray. I spent all of yesterday. I've mentioned Lisa before. She's had some health issues over the weekend, and my focus through the holiday and stuff was with her. I finally got home last night enough to be able to sit down for a couple hours and relax before bed, and was able to watch it to keep my tradition alive. And since I've never heard of it, now I'll have to check it out. The movie stars William Daniels, the voice of Kit from Knight Rider, and from Boy Meets World and St. Elsewhere. Ken Howard, who was the White Shadow in The White Shadow. That's a series that I think Ed would have seen or at least know of. And he was also the head of the Screen Actors Guild for a long time. Howard Da Silva, an older actor who is absolutely hilarious. James Noble from Benson. And just, it's got this great cast. There's great music. Some of it's very funny. Yeah, it's a young Blythe Danner's in it. So it's definitely a fun movie to watch. I found it by accident once back in the late 90s, and I've been watching it ever since. So, all right, this has been a very long cold open, but just wanted to cover that. We'll come back, and we're going to catch up on the news. We're going to do a deep dive into the Super Scroll. And instead of Key Collectibles, I want to show off a new book I got. So let's jump in, and we'll be right back. Everybody, welcome to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. It is July 5th, Independence Recovery Day. We got a bunch of people already here. Josh is here, Triple B, Kenneth, Ed, and Jeff. Glad to see you guys are here. I love the fact that a lot of people are into this movie. Josh says he's just 5 blocks from Independence Hall. So I love that. Again, this was a movie that I thought no one had heard of, and it was on my own little private thing for the longest time. And then you get online and socials, and you start seeing all these other people going, "Oh, I just watched it." So it's very cool. So, all right, we're going to jump into the news. Like I said, we're going to do a deep dive into the Super Scrolls because they even name dropped in the latest issue. We're not going to do any spoilers for the new episode that just dropped, but they do say the term Super Scroll in it. So, all right, let's get to the comic headlines. I'm a little insane today, as opposed to insane every day. All right, let's see. Where's my news? Oh, we may be getting more Doctor Strange sooner than expected. Benedict Cumberbatch recently hinted that he's going to be returning in a new movie next year. Hey, Backwoods. Now, what he says is he was on the JW3 Speaker Series, and he said there are some Marvel capers in the making next year. Now, we don't know if he means he will be filming something next year or if it will be released next year, nor do we even know if he's talking about a standalone Doctor Strange sequel, which has not been announced, or if he's talking about showing up in something like Avengers Kang Dynasty or Agatha House of Heart or Coven of Chaos or whatever. I mean, we really don't know. Just that he's saying that something's involving him next year. Now, if I had to guess, I think he's going to start filming next year, because I don't know of anything he's been involved in this year. But the last time we saw him, technically the last time, was the post-credit scene for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And of course, that's where we see Charlize Theron pop up as Clea, and she tells Doctor Strange that he's caused an incursion and that together they're going to fix it. And she asks him, are you afraid? And he's like, not in the least. And that's where he puts the cloak on. He's got the third eye. I really hope they get rid of the third eye thing. That's just really weird looking. It's unsettling. Other than that, I look forward to more Doctor Strange. Now, moving on to Marvel has put out a lot of these series now. And the only one to be officially getting a second season, of course, is Loki. We got that coming up in August. Well, one of the other ones may be getting one, and that would be WandaVision. But WandaVision isn't getting an actual second season, or at least according to actress Deborah Jo Rupp, who, of course, we know from that 70s show. She was in WandaVision as Miss Hart. Well, according to her, Agatha Coven of Chaos is the sequel to WandaVision. And that kind of makes sense. Now, she was talking to Berkshire Magazine and referred to it as, it's the second season of WandaVision for Marvel. It's very much like American Horror Story, where each season is a whole new kind of thing. I was shocked when they called me, because I really thought that would be it. And I was fine with that. But when they called, I got so excited because it's a character I never get to play. She's going to be great fun. Now, they did try to poke and get a little more information out of her. And her response is classic. She goes, I can't tell you. I'm terrified of these people. They're the most secretive people on the face of the earth. You're forbidden to talk about anything. I'm afraid they would come arrest me. But this I can tell you. I'm basically the same person that I was in WandaVision, Miss Hart, but in a different kind of thing. We shot in LA, and I'm packing now as we speak to go to Atlanta for 2 months to continue shooting. So now it's interesting that she says this, because the acting strike is still looming, but hopefully that'll get resolved as well as the writer's strike, and Hollywood can get back up and running. Let's see. Larissa, hello. JD says, seems like the third eye might have been a Raimi addition. Seems like the kind of thing he'd like. Yeah, it does. But there is a side effect to the using the Darkhold. So it says, did he say he was specifically going to be Doctor Strange? Maybe he's going to voice something. Oh, good point. He could be voicing for What If Season 2. That's a possibility. So good thought there, Ed. All right, let's move on to our next bit of news. And I thought we had more news, but it's really only a couple things. Warner Brothers Japan and WIT Studios, or WIT Studio, have officially announced that an isekai-themed Suicide Squad anime series is in development. Now, isekai, and I could be pronouncing that wrong, so don't get on me if I am. It's a new term for me, so I looked it up. And this is a genre of anime where the protagonist gets transported or reborn into a completely new world. Now, the series will be directed by Eric Osada from WIT Studios, while Akira Amano is set to handle the character designs. WIT Studios, of course, is best known for its work on Attack on Titan, Vinland Saga, and Spy vs. Family, or Spy X Family. Taipei Nagatsuki and Eiji Umehara will pen the script. The pair are the creators of the hit original anime series Vivi Fluorite Eyes Song. Never heard of that one at all. I've heard of uh, Attack on Titan and Vinland Saga, but not that one. So, yeah, that's pretty much the only real big news of the day. Um, we're still waiting for news on the Jonathan Majors thing. That seems to be bouncing back and forth. Um, there was news last week that he had filed like a counter report against the woman, and they had enough to arrest her, but they didn't arrest her. So there was a lot of stuff going on there. Spy X Family is great. Oh, good to know, Larissa. Thank you. Um, and then one of the big magazines came out with an article that just had people going off on Jonathan Majors. So it really does seem to be going back and forth. And Marvel seems to be kind of completely staying out of it. They are trying to avoid both the good and the bad. They're trying to. I think what they want to do is not come down and fire the guy without actually having evidence that he had done something wrong. But at the same time, they don't want to come out and do we're behind him all the way, because they don't know if he did anything wrong. And as a studio, they're really in a bad position. So I think they're handling it as well as anybody could. But again, with all this stuff, you go online and it's swirling around like crazy. That, oh, yeah, all this horrible stuff came out of him. And then the next report is, oh, he's totally going to be exonerated. It's like, can we just stick with the actual facts and not the speculation? It's kind of like I keep seeing articles talking about how or James Gunn disappoints fans as DC pulls out of San Diego Con. Really? I don't know if you could. That seems like such an odd headline, because the reason the studios are choosing not to do San Diego Con is because of the actors' strike. And the fact that it hasn't been settled, it's just been pushed. These pushing are basically means that there's probably a really good chance that the actors will be on strike during the weekend of San Diego. And if that's the case, when they're on strike, they're not allowed to do any promotional stuff. So that means that San Diego Con would be devoid of any of the actors at all. It's just going to be the suits walking out and going, these are the movies we're putting out. And that's not what people go there for. People go there because they want to ooh and ah as Kevin Feige calls out one name after the other, and all the Avengers walk on stage. And then these, oh, I'm in the same room as Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans. And well, you don't have that. So, but everybody is trying to make a story out of this. And it's just the studios siding on, or coming down on the side of caution. So it says, with all the different versions of Kang they can play with, they could easily recast. Absolutely. If worst case scenario, and he is like arrested, or it's to the point where they can't use him anymore, they can put out Loki, whereas I think it's the only thing they have him currently in. And then they can make a change. And I think fans will go, okay. I mean, they've accepted multiverses. They've accepted a Loki that can be not only Tom Hiddleston, but Sophia DiMartino and Richard E. Grant and a freaking alligator. I think they can accept a change of actors. Hell, Rhodey, they did it in one line. Don Cheadle walks in. Tony Stark says, "I'm surprised to see you." He goes, "Yeah, I'm here. It's me. Get over it." And we had changed characters. So I don't think Marvel's that worried about it. I think they're actually doing the right thing by waiting to see how it plays out to move forward with the guy if he's innocent or recast if he's guilty. You know? Josh says basically with what WB did when Ezra Miller just receded like Homer Simpson into the shrubs until the public forgets about criminal accusations. Nice visual there. Larissa says, without the actors San Diego Comic-Con, it's going to be very interesting. Yeah. They're still going to do panels, and they're still going to have, a presence. It's just they're not going to do the big presentation panels in Hall H. DC Comics will still have panels, and probably DC Animation will still be there. It's just not going to be the big event thing in Hall H. And if you ask people in the comic industry, this is not a bad thing, because with those big studio things, it keeps the actual comic book fans from getting into the show. And this is supposed to be a comic book convention first. San Diego Comic-Con, if you look at its actual charter, it's a nonprofit organization, and it's supposed to be partly to promote and the art form of comic books. It's supposed to be about comic books, and as these studios swoop in and take over more and more space, it gets less and less about comics. And it's gotten so busy and so just unbelievably packed that you really are pushing out the people that the show was originally for and bringing it into where it's just fanboys. So Ed says, that was awesome the way they did that with Rhodey. Yep. I wonder how many times Terrence Howard just kicked himself for not sticking with the program. Howard was technically the safest and biggest name when they did Iron Man. He got more money than Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr. was a risk that a lot of people at the studio were not comfortable taking. So when the movie did well and number 2 came around, they're like, no, we've got our bankable cast now. We don't need to pay Terrence Howard big money, and Terrence wanted a raise. So, John, hey John, how you doing? SDC is finally going to be good again. I started going to San Diego Con in 1995 when it was about half the size it is now, and I mean the convention center was half the size. Now it's just gotten so big. One of the things I would do is I would get there, and the first thing I would do is I'd walk up and down all the aisles saying hi to everybody I knew. And then I would spend the 4 days or whatever it was, and on the last day I would walk back up and down the aisles saying goodbye to everybody. Nowadays, I don't even bother. It just would take too long to do that lap, and it's just so crowded and stuff. So, all right, guys, let's go ahead. We'll take our first break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what the hell is a Super Scroll. Be right back.
Did you know that every Experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out, twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code.
Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with 2 comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales.
Programming on the EXP is made possible by viewers like you, or your local comic shop, or that Kickstarter you backed, or the publisher you like, or comic industry professionals who want to share a message with the world. Really, anyone who wants to advertise with us can. If you're interested in seeing a product you know and love, or are creating, or are publishing, or are involved with, advertised here on The Experience, and having your message shared with our viewers, please reach out by scanning the QR code below or visiting our website and using the contact form.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. We've got a great lineup today, but there's a change in it that you need to know about. Normally, after my show here on Wednesday, it goes right into comic collectibles and then the rest of the night. Well, during the summer, at least that's the plan for now, comic collectibles is shrinking a little bit. Instead of being a 2-hour show on Wednesdays, it's still going to be 2 hours on Monday, but on Wednesdays it's going to be 1 hour. And it's going to start an hour later. So there's going to be an hour break after my show, and then Comic Collectibles will start, which means that if I want to run a little long, I probably can, but I try not to. Now, but like I said, that's just going to be on Wednesdays. So 7 p.m. Eastern, Comic Collectibles. After that, we'll be Talk and Treat Trivia with guest Henri Compen talking about his Warline comic. Then we'll have 360 Comics, followed by Kicking It with Henri. So he's on twice tonight. So you want to stick around for all that. Now, we were just talking about headlines and how people seem to be trying to make issues. And I swear to you, this just went up on one of the sites. The headline says, Marvel has now killed off 5 OG female heroes in the MCU. Opening line of the article says, Marvel Studios has evolved a lot over the years in regards to its women, both in front of and behind the camera, but it has killed off too many of its original female heroes. So you see what the trend that they're trying to be there, that they're fridging heroes or whatever you want to do. But listen to the 5 heroes that got killed that they're referring to. Number 1, Peggy Carter. Peggy Carter, who fought during World War II and is not a super person. So the fact that they have passed away of old age kind of makes sense. Yet they're still using her in the animation stuff. She popped up in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, where everybody in the Illuminati died. So I kind of don't think that's a legitimate one. All right. So who's number 2 on the list? Gamora. Yes, they killed Gamora and then brought her right back and is still alive in the MCU. I don't know if she technically counts. Okay, who's next? Black Widow. They did kill Black Widow. And then they put a movie out with her in it. And they have a new Black Widow. So they killed Tony Stark. Captain America looks like he's just about dead, if not very old. They do tend to kill characters, especially when there's an actor or actress that wants to move on after 10 years or so working in the studio. The next one, Scarlet Witch, who turned bad and appears to be dead, but nobody is buying that she's actually dead. And then finally, they talk about Maria Hill. So that just seems to be like an incredibly leading thing, you know? Just, it's absolutely ridiculous. So, all right, let's see. Let's catch up real quick on that. Really, I'm sorry, that's very laughable. A typical ignore the details clickbait article. Exactly, Ed. Yep. Gamora is one of the most underrated female superheroes. Agreed. Peggy Carter also returning as the other Captain Britain or Captain England or whatever in What If Season 2. Yep, she'll be back. She's the ongoing character from that. So, yeah. So does that mean Dan gets a 2-hour show on Wednesdays? No. We're actually trying to buffer in some. It's a long story, but no, there will not be 2 hours of Dan. I don't think Dan could do 2 hours in a row. I already do 2 hours on Tuesday with the review show. So, all right, let's get into. If you're watching Secret Invasion, then you know that we are. And if you haven't seen number 3 yet, or even if you have, you get the idea. We're moving towards Super Skrulls. You know, I mean, that's what that teaser was. So just to get you guys ready, if you're not that familiar with the Super Skrulls, there have been many Super Skrulls in the MCU, but there's one main one. It was one of those that we had a single one for a very long time, and then suddenly we got others. So, but we're definitely moving towards a Super Skrull, and while we don't have the Fantastic Four in the MCU yet, they are looking to borrow powers from other things that are set up in the existing canon. And I actually think what they're doing is very clever. But let's get into who the Super Skrull is in the comics. Now, the character was created much earlier than I thought. I thought they had the Skrulls for a while, and then down the line somebody went, hey, let's give them the power of the Fantastic Four. But that happened a lot sooner than I thought. It happened in 1963, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, in the pages of Fantastic Four number 18. So it really was that early in the run. Now, what the Skrull that would become the Super Skrull started off on the world of Tarnax 4 in the Andromeda Galaxy. This has since been destroyed by Galactus, but his true name was Kl'rt. I guess it's Kl'rt. It's one of those that's KL''RT. So the apostrophe means that there's something there that's been taken out, but they don't let you know which letter it is. It could be Kl'rt, Kl'rt. So you just go Kl'rt, and you know. And he was a decorated soldier married to a Skrull countess from the planet Zaragzna. Zaragzna. I don't know. It's Zaragzna. Now, with her, he had 2 children, a son that he absolutely adored, and a daughter that he despised. But he wasn't the best soldier. He and his crew had eventually got to the point where they had more defeats than victories. And in doing so, he ended up getting banished from Zarganuts, or whatever it is, and wasn't allowed to see his family. His wife actually kept him from his son because he was now dishonored. Meanwhile, the Skrull Emperor, Dork VII, he wanted to strike back at the Fantastic Four because he was a little perturbed with them. They had defeated his plans to invade Earth a couple times. So he came up with this way to give a Skrull all the powers of the FF. Now, this was a scientific thing. This wasn't something as simple as, teaching them how to do it. They actually had to manipulate the DNA. Now, Kl'rt was selected for the procedure, and the results actually were better than they had anticipated, because even though he had all the powers of the Fantastic Four, he was better at those powers than the actual FF. He was stronger than the Thing. He could outfly and create had better pyrokinetic abilities than the Human Torch. He had better control over invisibility and force fields than the Invisible Woman. He could even stretch further than Mr. Fantastic. And along with that, he also retained his ability to shapeshift. And in the comics, Skrulls have kind of a hypnotic ability. And even though we haven't seen that yet in the Secret Invasion, they haven't. And he hung on to all that stuff. And of course, they sent this Super Skrull off to Earth to basically defeat the Fantastic Four, to be the first part of a new mission to take over Earth. And in the first encounter with the FF, Clerk did great. He got the upper hand and actually forced the heroes into retreat. But while they were retreating and fighting, Reed Richards noticed something. That there was a beam of energy or beam being transmitted from the Skrull homeworld directly to Clerk. And it's what augmented him. Well, once Reed Richards figured this out, he had Sue Storm block it with her force field, keep the beam from hitting Clerk, and in doing so, Clerk lost all of his abilities. He was then easily defeated, and the Human Torch dropped him into a crater where he couldn't get out. Or so you would think, because of course he did. Like all the villains in the MCU, this makes me think of Kang, and how all these people like, oh my God, Kang got defeated by Ant-Man. That's not possible. You know, just what a weak character Kang is. Kang gets his ass handed to him constantly. The Super Skrull gets his ass handed to him constantly. Thanos lost a lot. It's what the villains do. They lose. None of them are, these omnipotent people. So just keep that in mind. Now, Ed says, Dan, do you think the whole Secret Invasion storyline will finish with this series, or are they going to keep dragging it on into the movies? The way they kept dragging it out in comics made me hate it. I think the invasion will be wrapped up. I'm not sure how I haven't really got a sense of how they're going to wrap up the storyline, though. Will the Skrulls be done? I'm thinking that they may resolve this by actually finding them a planet, or finding them a suitable setup where they can live, and getting at least a majority of them off the planet. So I'm not sure how it's going to resolve, but I think it will have a resolution. I think the invasion part will be over. There may be a handful of Skrulls left, or they might disappear. But yeah, I think they'll at least wrap it up enough that we're not having to deal with it in the next few movies and stuff. And it's not, we're not going to be sitting around watching a movie going, wait, is he a Skrull? So America should take them to a reality where the Skrulls won the war. That's not a bad idea. All right. So Clerk, of course, gets out of the crater because that's what they do. And when he returns, he's posing as a character called the Invincible Man. And he kidnaps Franklin Storm, who is Johnny and Sue's father. And the team will eventually defeat him. But he straps a bomb to Franklin Storm, and Franklin sacrifices himself to save the team. So the Super Skrull actually kills Johnny and Sue's father. So Josh says the Marvels movie might be the end of finding the Skrulls a permanent home. That's a possibility too. They may solve the invasion part of it, but still have the Skrulls, and the Marvels may end up being the wrap up of it. That's a good point, because they do seem to be linked together. The Super Skrull has been all over the place, though. He's later recruited by Doctor Doom to be part of the villains attacking during Reed and Sue's wedding. So he is the wedding crasher. I think he's more of, I can't think of the guy's name, not the Owen Wilson, but the other guy. He's more of that character in Wedding Crashers. But from there, he would branch out into fighting other heroes. He would go against Spider-Man and Miss Marvel and the original Captain Marvel. He even went up against Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. He would get tied up in the Kree-Skrull War and would end up actually working with Thanos on the Mad Titan's quest for the Cosmic Cube. See, before he ever went for the Infinity Stones, he was going after the Cosmic Cube, which, by the way, is different in comics. The Cosmic Cube, which seems to be the Tesseract in the MCU, didn't hold an Infinity Stone in it. It was its own separate thing. So it's just kind of interesting, the connection there. After dealing with Thanos, he would go on to fight the Canadian hero Sasquatch, the Silver Surfer, and then somehow he ended up going up against Iron Fist and Power Man, which just seems like a mismatch on paper, I mean, I like Power Man and Iron Fist, but they don't quite seem that same level as a Super Skrull. He also would kind of jump back and forth. As the years went on, he became an anti-hero at some points, or less villainous. There was a point that the Skrull Empire decides they want to take the young Avenger character of Hulkling into custody. And if you're not familiar with Hulkling, he's half Kree and half Skrull. He is the son of a Princess Anel of the Skrull Empire and of the hero Kree hero Marvel. So he's got ties to both of them. And the Skrulls want to take him into custody to protect him. Well, Kl'rt ends up taking his place and being taken by the Skrulls, letting Hulkling stay on Earth. And Kl'rt then starts working as kind of a spy to report back on both the Kree and the Skrulls. So it's kind of an interesting thing that he would suddenly go, oh no, I'm going to help this kid out. But it didn't stop there. There were other times that he actually kind of took a heroic turn. During the Annihilus, when the big Annihilus wave was spreading across Conquest or Annihilus Quest, when the big wave was going out, he tried to stop it, ended up sacrificing himself. But the death didn't take. And he ended up in kind of a negative realm where he met a woman named Praxagora, who would become his lover. And Kl'rt would go on to join with Ronan the Accuser and Zach Dell in taking on the Phalanx invasion to try to save the Kree homeworld. So, again, kind of an odd choice for a Skrull to try to help Ronan the Accuser save the Kree homeworld, because that's not really his thing, He's kind of against the Kree. And then, of course, in Secret Invasion, he ends up helping Nova against the Skrulls. He was definitely going more anti-hero at this point, and even teamed with the Alliance forces against Thanos, and then worked with Amadeus Cho during the Return to the Planet Hulk storyline. So he's kind of all over the place. Now, while besides him, there have been quite a few additional Super Skrulls over the years. Some have the same powers, the Fantastic Four base powers, while others actually had some interesting combinations. There was one that had different X-Men abilities, like Colossus, Cyclops, Gambit, and Wolverine, or Nightcrawler was thrown in. So it was kind of interesting. And then there was another one, some more recent one, had the powers of Daredevil, Elektra, Cloak, and Dagger, which is kind of strange because Elektra doesn't really have powers, just has training. But does Elektra have powers? Anyway, but there's one particular one that stands out, and that is one named Pagan, Pagon, whose name is currently being used in the Secret Invasion series, played by Killian Scott. He's Gravik's right-hand man. Pagan was in the comics, Pagan was a Super Skrull that ended up taking the place of Elektra, and was also Varanki's male lover. He took the place of Elektra, and he also took the place of Varanki's male lover Ciri, who died fighting Elektra. Now, with Elektra's ability, Pagan also had those of Colossus and Invisible Woman, which makes him pretty lethal if you think about it. He's a killing machine that can turn to steel and turn invisible. He ended up being killed by Echo during a suicide mission. Now, if you're not familiar with who Varanki is, she was the Skrull Queen and the main villain of Secret Invasion series, who posed as Spider-Woman and had Spider-Woman's powers. So now, if we don't end up getting a Super Skrull, and I'm pretty sure we're going, I think we are going to get a Super Skrull, because we've seen Gravik in trailers stretching his arm out like Groot. So and then they're even name dropped the term Super Skrull in the latest episode. So, but to me, it's interesting because let's see what Josh says. Elektra has the power of really long bandana, never awkwardly getting snagged on anything. That is a fantastic power, but it's not originally hers. Originally, it was the Tom Baker Doctor Who that had that ability with his scarf. JD says, completely nitpicking, annoying correction. Reed made a jamming device that blocked the Skrull's power. The first instance of Invisible Woman's force field powers aren't until FF22. Well done. Thanks for catching that. Ed says, I can't remember. Have we done all we're going to do with the Marvel series pitch? I can't remember. No, we are going to get back to the Jack of Hearts pitch. So, but yeah. So right now, the abilities they're looking to put in the Super Skrull in the series are going to be Groot, Cole Obsidian, the Frost Beast, and Extremis. So I think those are pretty comparable to the ones that Klort had. So, all right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'm going to show you guys a new book I got, and that will be it for the show. So please hit the like and subscribe buttons, and we'll be right back.
Why was Princess Zelda sad after watching a bunch of YouTube videos? She couldn't find the link in the description. We'll stop if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's super easy. Click subscribe and click the bell when you do. And thanks for supporting the EXP. What if Hans Gruber from Die Hard had to battle the Joker from Batman the Animated Series in a dance battle? Or who would win in a race between Baby from Baby Driver and Snidely Whiplash? If Austin Powers and Shrek found themselves in a hot dog eating contest, who would emerge victorious? These are the questions we talk about on Nerd Killer Warfare. Debate the most absurd questions you've ever heard in popular culture. Register now by scanning the QR code or visiting bit.ly/EXP casting.
Comic Collectibles is a pretty straightforward show. You got Rex here, he sells the comics, and you got Rockin' Robbie, he knows about the comics. And finally, John, well, no one really knows what John does. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a great guy, but he just keeps showing up. Come to think of it, I don't even really know how he gets in here. Anyway, awesome comics, rare books, rarer signatures, slabbed books, and amazing cover sketches by Ken Hazer and others. Simple formula, you want the comics, you buy the comics. To sum up, Rex sells the comics, Robbie knows the comics, and John, who might possibly be a ghost. I mean, seriously, has anyone ever seen him show up or leave? Comic Collectibles with Rex and John, Mondays from 6 to 8 Eastern on The Experience. Comic Culture and Sales.
everybody. Welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. Now, we have talked about original art, and one of the things I love is IDW does these artist editions of these books, and they're absolutely huge hardcover. And what they do is they reprint the original art pages without color, just as they are. A lot of them are lettered because it's back in a time when everything was hand lettered. But they're these big books that cost like $150. And I don't know about you, but I don't, throw around $150 easily. So they started coming out with these artisan edition books. And I picked this up. This is the Jack Kirby's Fantastic Four. And it's a handful of the books, but you can see it's, the original art, bigger than a comic format, not quite as big as 11 by 17, but it really lets you look at the detail and stuff that Jack worked on. Well, I've had this one probably since late last year, and I had on my Amazon wish list a few others. They've got like a David Mazzucchelli Daredevil one and stuff like that. But one of the ones they had, and I had been wanting to get but hadn't gotten yet, was John Romita's The Amazing Spider-Man Artisan Edition. Artist Edition is a full size. The artisan editions are the softer cover with the smaller size. Well, when John Romita passed away, I thought, just pull the trigger. Just go ahead and get it. And I did. And this came in over the weekend. And again, it's absolutely gorgeous. You look at some of the line work on these pages, and you see just what a remarkable artist he is. And I really do love these. The book is actually dedicated to Virginia, his wife. And this particular one breaks down, includes Amazing Spider-Man 67, 68, 69, 71, 75, and 84. And how they do these is Scott Dunbier is the one that puts these together, and he tracks down the original art, because a lot of these, they don't have this format anymore. They keep the pages ready to print. So to go back to something like this, he has to reach out and try to find which collectors own the pages and how to, how they can scan them, or he reaches out through the community and is like, hey, does anybody have any pages from this issue or that issue? If so, let me know. And yeah, I do love these books. And this one is just spectacular, again, because it really shows off the brilliance of John's art, and as much as I love Jack and Steve Ditko and stuff, John should be in that same breath. The difference is, though, that where Stan and Jack worked on characters from the beginning, John is mostly known for taking over Spider-Man and originally working on Daredevil. He didn't start on either of those books, so he doesn't get credit for creating the characters, but he ends up, designing and coming up with so many characters. He ends up being the art director at the company. So it's a brilliant book, and these are a lot cheaper than the big artist editions. The artist ones, like I said, $100, $150. These go for like $25 or $30, and you get all of this beautiful art. Plus, it has the dialogue and stuff, at least in these. When they switch to digital, I don't know how they're going to do the lettering or if they're going to bother, but this is absolutely gorgeous. It says, I hate that COVID took away my ability to see black and white pictures. Well, I didn't know that, man. I know it could have been much worse for a 50-year-old comic lover. It really hurts that I can't make out black and white comics now. All I see is blurry. Oh, man, I'm sorry to hear that. That really sucks, man. I did not know that. Larissa says that's amazing. Great. That is a great pickup. Looks amazing. Yeah. There's a few others that I'm looking to get, but I definitely bumped up this one because of John's passing. I wanted to get it. Josh says, well, I never knew about these less expensive ones. I've had my eye on the artist editions for some of the original EC artists, but they are all out of my price range. Yeah. And that's, I don't know if they're doing these for the EC books. I think they might be, but I came across these, like I said, by accident when I found the Jack Kirby one. And now when I've got a little extra money, I'm going to, I pick up one here and there because it really is neat to see the original art. And yeah, it's just it's really cool to have. And I'm probably gonna sit down tonight and pour myself a nice cup of tea and really go through the book and all the pages and stuff this evening. But I wanted to share that with you guys, also because I didn't have a chance to put any key collectibles together. But I will do my best to get a set for tomorrow. We will be talking about the 3rd episode of Secret Invasion tomorrow, and then next week. Will be next week. I will try to get back to the Jack of Hearts pitch. I really do want to finish that up, but I wanted to get the Super Scroll thing done today. So, and also there's a bunch of great stuff on TV right now. There's the new season, final season of Jack Ryan on Prime. There's more Witcher, which I will both watch and talk about. I also am a fan of The Lincoln Lawyer, and there's a new season of that coming out in a couple days. So we're going to have those things to talk about as well. And if there's anything that I'm not covering that you guys think I should be, let me know. Let me know what it is that if there's something that you want more information on. So, all right, guys, we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you for tuning in. Remember, Comic Collectibles will start at 7 Eastern. 4 Pacific, so there'll be a little gap, but don't run off. To go get yourself something to eat, relax a little bit, and then come back for Rex and John. All right, so I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great night.
Do you remember what it was like when you were a little kid and you got a letter in the mail? Now imagine that letter was filled with information about your favorite shows, pop culture questions, links to things you're going to want to see later, and even sneak peeks at upcoming programming here on The Experience. That's what the EXP mailing list is. Every week, we send you sneak peeks, information, and all of the relevant links for all of the shows you want to see. Sign up now on our website or scan the QR code that's on your screen right now.